Welcome to Kudzu Cast, episode 3. How you doing, Chris?
Good, Norm. How about yourself?
Great. I saw this thing come up in the past couple of days, and I wasn't sure if you might be able to help me out on it a little bit.
We'll probably not, but go ahead. We'll see what happens.
This is on MSN, which I'm usually allergic to MSN, but that's where the link took me. So it says U.S. Saudi Petro-Dollar pact ends after 50 years. The 50-year-old Petro-Dollar agreement between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia was just allowed to expire. The term petrodollar refers to the U.S. dollar's role as the currency used for crude oil transactions on the world market. Now, if I understand that right, that means that for somebody to buy crude oil from Saudi Arabia, they had to buy it in U.S. dollars.
Yes.
And now they don't.
Yes. Well, I don't know how long they'll continue to utilize the dollar after the agreement has expired.
Expires, right?
The potential for things to go wrong now is really, really high because the petrodollar at least fixed some value to our dollar while our government is printing money to pay for things everywhere.
So this could have some really serious ramifications for the U.S. economy.
Yeah, potential hyperinflation where
Wow.
everything, the value of everything shoots up astronomically and the value of your money depletes to who knows how low. In the past, historically speaking, you're talking about a wheelbarrow full of paper money to buy a loaf of bread.
Right.
And,
That's what I was going to say. I've heard stories about, in the Great Depression, a loaf of bread went from a nickel to like $5. And at that time, $5 was like a month's income.
Yeah, that was a lot of money back then. We still have it relatively good right now, as bad as things are, comparably speaking to other places. I mean, I would still rather be in America than any other country, but
Right.
we're rapidly losing ourselves in what made us. What's the term that they used to call us, exceptional, and now that term
American exceptionalism.
is yes, which was based on the fact that our rights come from being higher than ourselves. That was the whole point of American exceptionalism.
Right. It seems like both Biden and Obama had trouble with that part. We are endowed by our Creator with inalienable rights.
Right, and they also it's kind of funny. They are anti-nationalist, but they used other countries as examples of American exceptionalism. Like French would think that France is an exceptional country, and England would think that they're an exceptional country. And I'm not saying they're not. But what I am saying is that our founders believed in a higher power, that's where our rights come from. They don't come from the government telling us that they are our rights. They come from a higher being so that humans cannot take them away. That's the whole point of it being a right. And I think we've lost our way with that to a certain degree because we allow individuals to take away our rights. And that's the whole point of a right, is that nobody's supposed to be able to take it away.
Right. They're inalienable.
Yes,
right.
They are beyond us and beyond. And
that's why people that have the concept that our rights come from the government kind of miss the point that if the government gives us our rights, and that means the government can take our rights away. But our founders had a very different viewpoint of rights. They said that our rights come from our Creator, that we are created with these inalienable rights. Inalienable meaning they can't be taken away from us. And so, or we can't be alienated from those rights, essentially. And so, getting back to this petrodollar thing, wasn't it hyperinflation that happened in Venezuela when Venezuela went to socialism, and they went through all kinds of turmoil, and hyperinflation was one of those things.
Right.
And one of the things that happened is that they could go to the grocery store and there was nothing to buy in the grocery store, much less the money to buy it with.
Well, the scary thing of what's happening to me is that it seems to be following the exact recipe of Germany. And that's the dollar was destroyed, and they used socialism to try to put it back together. It worked to a certain degree, but it also put together a huge, corrupt, evil empire in the process that took away all the rights of the people that were there. And everybody wants to compare Trump to Hitler, and everybody ignores the second part of the Nazis, which was socialist. They were a nationalist socialist. And the problem to me isn't the nationalist, it's the socialist. That's the crux of the problem that I see.
So I guess this is another peg in kind of pegging down the principle of self-reliance, and the way things are going now, that with the potential for some really serious weakening of the dollar and hyperinflation in these things, it seems like it's getting more and more important every day that we're able to provide for ourselves, rely on ourselves, that we need to have measures in place so that if we go to the grocery store like they did in Venezuela and there's nothing on the shelf, or what is on the shelf, the very few things that are on the shelf cost $500 or $1,000 for what used to cost $20, that what are we going to do?
Right. And your salary didn't go up.
That's right.
By the way,
that's right.
Inflation is going to outrun your pay. That's just the way it is, and that's
if you're
the
even
way it
able
is
to
now.
retain a salary.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people might not even be able to retain a salary in that kind of collapse.
Right. Yes. Yeah. You can. I don't know how bad things are gonna get. When you have a whole lot of things going on that can damage a country, if you have this here, and this here, and this here, one of these things is going to damage the country. And there are a whole lot of things going on at one time that will damage our country.
And it's almost like there are people, now I say almost like this, right? It's almost like there are
You're very
people,
generous.
Yeah. It's almost like there are people who are just trying different things to see which one works. And that this is just another one of the things that's being tried to see if it'll work.
What'll work? These things will work. They
right.
damaged us already.
Well, I think the U.S. economy has proven to be much more resilient than they might have thought. So they're having to do more things, more radical things, to try to damage it the way that they need to carry out their agenda.
You mean like you can't even define the sex of people, which is the basis of a society?
Right, yeah. Destroy the family, the most fundamental building block of society, isolate people, make people afraid, make people distrusting.
You mean pushing diversity over unity?
Yes.
Yes. Unity, togetherness. That's what they don't want.
That's right.
And the thing is, used to, our morals united us. They were things that we can agree on. That's something else that has been done. This isn't happening by accident.
That's right.
This is another thing that's been done that damages us as a people. You don't have a society when you intentionally break down society. And that's exactly what's happening. Everything from George Floyd riots to the to crashing the value of our dollar, to letting in millions of people who you don't know who they are come in. None of this is happening by chance right now. All of this has been engineered.
That's right.
And that's the thing. And if our antiquated press was honest, what they would tell us is who's doing this.
That's right.
That's why are all these things happening?
Well, that's why the people that are pushing that agenda had to get the mainstream media on their side, and all of the major institutions are players in the well, not even conspiracy. They're players
In the plan.
In the plan,
Right.
So
Right.
everything you're hearing in the media, everything you're getting in education, even a large segment of the religious environment is now going along with the agenda, with the the so-called religious leaders wearing the flag of freaky in their Sunday services, and promoting these just grossly immoral agendas. You look at the infiltrations of that ideology that's being made, and it's astonishing how successful it's being.
What you're saying is that there are actually steps that can be done to destroy a society, there are people that are actually
right.
in the process of doing so.
Right.
Yes.
And what's more is that they even wrote it down. Cloward Pivens and Saul Alinsky, and they even wrote it down, detailed it. This is what you would have to do, and you go and you look at that, and you look around and you say, well, they're doing it,
Right.
and nobody's
down,
doing anything to stop it.
Right down. Well, right now we are.
We're
trying
trying
to. That's right. There's quite a number of people trying to, and they've been trying to for a long time.
That's right.
I mean, Glenn Beck has been at it for a period of time, and
Right.
even before him, and I discounted him for a long time, was Alex Jones.
Yeah.
And his flamboyancy and outrageousness pushed me away from him.
Me too, yeah.
And now that is gone,
It's amazing how many of the things that he said that we all laughed at and said, who is this nut? What is he talking about? Right? That now are established facts, are completely true.
Yeah. And the thing is he'll tell you, only thing he did was follow the World Economic Forum agenda.
Right.
Start throwing it out there for people to know and understand. Why is that so bad? Who is it that doesn't want the World Economic Forum agenda known to the whole world? Is it moral for people who have nothing to do with our lives telling us what to do? I mean, you think about the worst wars in history are civil wars, and they're caused a lot of times by people over there telling us what we're going to do over here. Right. The people over here don't like being told what to do by the people over there. Right. And that's a lot of what's going on right now.
Isn't it amazing how peaceful and harmonious things could be if people just stopped trying to control other people and controlled themselves? And if
or try to control the people that need controlling, like the people that are literally out of control, that they're currently letting be uncontrolled, right, for the purpose of causing the chaos that allows them to acquire more power and give them more control over us.
Right. Yeah, the people who actually are self-governing people, that's not what they want.
No.
They want people that have to rely on them to take care of them. And it's all about power. It's all about control. It's extremely immoral. And it amazes me at how you have a population that doesn't seem to have the ability to discern between two different positions and say, okay, well, over here on the left, what position, what platform do they stand for that isn't just grossly immoral? The murder of unborn babies, the mutilation of little children based on just gross immorality, and this this gender ideology, stuff. And you look at that and you say, okay, what sense of morality does the left have at all? And yet you're going to say that there's no difference between the right and the left? I mean, I don't agree with everything that comes out from the right. Rational people, critically minded people, are going to have disagreements, but they're disagreements that we can discuss, we can reason it out, we can, what kind of rational dialogue can you have with people that think it's okay to take an 8-year-old boy and cut off his genitalia because
he's going through a phase, right, and thinks he
likes to play with Barbies?
Yeah, he's watching Wonder Woman on TV, right, and wants to be like her.
What kind of rational dialogue can you have with people like that?
I don't understand how you can. I mean, it's immoral to begin with to not diagnose somebody who's suffering from a mental illness as mentally ill. I'm sorry, but if your genetic makeup is that you have an XY chromosome and you have male genitalia, you're a girl. If you have an XX arrangement on that pair of chromosomes and you have female genitalia, you're a female. Now, there are some biological things that occur that you can be born with questionable genitalia, but that's very, very, very rare.
It's a birth defect.
Yes.
Right? Just like any other birth defect.
That's correct.
But your biology is still your biology.
Yes.
Right? You still have the chromosomes that you have.
Right. I mean, when you have the rare child that has these deformities, you have options. You are the parent. You can decide for the child what you want their sex to be, or you can choose to do nothing, in which case you can let the person decide who they are as an adult. You don't know who you are while you're growing up. And it's easy to manipulate children into adopting a particular point of view. I mean, why do kids like cereals? I was disappointed when Captain Crunch decided they weren't going to advertise on TV anymore because, it was bad for people, but I loved Captain Crunch. So peanut butter Captain Crunch, to me, is the culinary equivalent of landing man on the moon. But that's just me. All right, back to them destroying our society.
Yeah.
How can you do that and have a conscience?
That's right. And
you know that this is going to end in death.
You look at the things on the left, and it seems like either very blatantly directly, or at the very least indirectly, it's all targeted at children.
It's a shame.
And it's mind-boggling. And then you got people, well, I can't vote for somebody who's a convicted felon. Okay, well, how about if they had to completely change the judicial system to convict him of a so-called felony? I guess that doesn't matter at all. But you're okay with what the left does to children, unborn and born. You know, we used to debate about abortion, which I don't know how anybody could, see that it's not murder. You're not murdering a human being. It is, I think it's pretty clear. It's murder. You're murdering a human being. Uh, but we had that debate, and I remember how people used to say that this abortion argument is going to develop to the point that they're talking about children that are already born.
Yes,
and
everybody said that was preposterous,
right?
And then,
and yet that's where we are.
then that's what actually some people wrote into laws.
That's right.
That's the amazing thing. And the other thing too is that when you don't have to worry about being honest, you can say anything that you want that's not true. And
so where will all of that leftist ideology stand when we're basically thrown back into the pioneer days and we're having to go hunting for squirrels and rabbits and deer and
we're not living in the city where we don't have those options.
Right, man. I'm telling you what, I would hate to be in a big city when that
if bad things happen, or you should say when bad things happen, because bad things happen relatively quickly. You can have a police shooting and the next day have
the city
riots. That's right. And that's a possibility nowadays. It's time. I don't like to say this because this isn't a sales show for my stuff, but it seems as though my stuff is more applicable.
Much more relevant. Seems like every day.
you want to be able to keep a gun handy in case you need it, and you never know when you might actually need it.
Right.
And families have kids. You want it to be handy and safe, which is why I invented the blocker. But this isn't an advertisement for that.
Right.
And the undergun allows you to get a drilling, which allows you to shoot 2 different calibers for roughly $200 instead of thousands on a European drilling.
Right.
And allows you to hunt different animals.
I know I hate driving through big cities when I, of course I have my, daily carry that I carry with me all the time. You got a daily carry, don't you, that you carry
yes,
on you? But when I'm driving through a city, I have backup in the car, so that it's basically recognizing that I'm in a place where, some fanatics could block the interstate, and now I find myself being pinned down in a riot in the middle of a major interstate going through a major city. Well, no, I'm not stopping. I'm not stopping. Better not get in my way because I'm not stopping.
It's a true story. When a few years ago, when my son, we call him the nickname Bean. When Bean was sick, we were transported by ambulance to Choa up in Atlanta.
Right.
And the conversation that occurred in the ambulance with my child was, can we get there? And the reason why the conversation was, can we get there, was because of protesters had the past few days blocked bridges and access into the city. And that would have severely affected my son, who's certainly not lived old enough to do any harm to anyone. And they put him at risk due to their own selfishness of something that
I think there were people that died in ambulances at that time.
Yeah, they couldn't get through. Yes, in other places. So, but anyway, let's get about to self-reliance, and because when it's inevitable that some of this stuff is going to have an impact. It's kind of like right now I see things as the first punch has been thrown, but it hasn't fully impacted yet. We can see some of it coming we already have what 15 million illegal aliens according to some numbers. Some people say higher, some people
That's
say
estimates,
lower.
yeah. I mean, we really don't know.
Well,
do
right?
we?
Yeah, because they're illegal,
That's right.
and we don't know. That's and we can't.
Doesn't that just blow your mind how they can have rallies saying, "Hey, we're all illegals and we demand these, benefits."
Right.
And okay, you're gathered all up in one place, all saying, "Hey, we're illegals." Why aren't there law enforcement units pulling up and saying, "Yeah, you all just admitted you're illegal, so now you're going to get in these trucks and we're going to drive you to the border, and you're going to be somebody else's problem now."
Yeah, because
how is it that we have a legal system that lets people stand up and say, "Hey, I'm illegal"?
Because you have politicians in positions of power who are selfish enough to not care what happens to the rest of us.
Their own citizens.
Yes, yes. And not only that, it's not only that they don't care about their own citizens, you have child trafficking taking place. When
Did you hear that? An estimated 25,000 children gone missing from the border.
yeah, I did read something about that. When Trump was in office, you never saw this from the antiquated media. But one thing that he did do was he focused on human trafficking.
That's right.
There were he would make busts of rings, and it would be on our I mean non-traditional news sources discussed it, but it was they would never mention anything good about Trump on the antiquated media at all. But so at any rate, when things go bad, what are you gonna do? What are you doing now? If you're in a city, what are you going to do about water if something happens that's inevitable? What are you going to do about food if something happens that's inevitable?
That's right.
If you see on the board, these are the 4 rules of gun safety from. Now I can't.
Cooper.
Yeah, Jeff Cooper, who was considered the modern father of modern handgunning. But there are so many people now who need this information that never grew up with it.
Right.
I mean, there's a apprenticeship that involves firearms. Most people that are comfortable with the firearms grew up around firearms.
Yeah, these are things that I kind of got. It was they weren't things that were like taught. Number 1, number 2, it's just things that I learned. There's a gun laying there. I just learned growing up. Don't put your hands on that.
Right.
My daughter, to the best of my knowledge anyway, has never mishandled a firearm because from a very early age she learned what they did and how to handle them, and she learned these rules. And if you don't break these rules, you're not gonna inadvertently hurt someone with a firearm, right?
Right.
Number 1, all guns are always loaded, right? So if that's your mentality toward a gun, you're not going to pick it up and play with it like.
No, the first thing that you should do is pick it up and check it to see if it's loaded.
Right. And then never let the muzzle point at anything you are not willing to destroy.
That's my golden rule. That's
right.
the main, because these are 4 rules here. They're not the only 4 rules in gun safety. I mean, this doesn't touch on dry firing for practice, or which you can use my blocker for too, is to use that as a hammer block for practice.
That rule has been so ingrained in me that you never. And the way I learned it was the way the rule was explained to me is, you imagine that there's a laser beam coming out of the barrel of your gun that cuts anything that you cross your barrel over, and so when you don't flag when you're coming across, you up and over, or you down and under, and you don't flag anything, because if you do, it'll get like a lightsaber, it'll get cut in half, right? And you just think of it that way.
Right.
And that's so ingrained in me. Like when something like this, this is a barrel that is not even attached to a, but it makes me uncomfortable. Just if this were laying on the table pointed at Chris, it would bug me. I would have to move it and turn it so it wasn't pointed at anybody, even though it's not even attached to a firearm, right? I mean, these things just get ingrained in you, so that
I remember the exact moment when I took muzzle direction seriously. And this gets into my story of how I got into gunsmithing too. There was, my dad was president of the clinic, and he had an administrator that worked with him at the time. They actually built up the local clinic here to be the largest private medical institution, second only to Emory. And now Emory runs it.
Right.
They took it over. But any rate, I was shooting skeet with a friend of mine, the administrator that my dad worked with, and his son. We were close friends. And so we were using, I remember I had just an old break open 20, not a 20 gauge, 410. I still have it. My son will use it too. But anyway, I had it. It was broken open. It wasn't loaded. I was just talking with Adam. We were swinging it around, and my dad was not a cusser when he was upset. So Mr. Christian said, "Quit pointing that GD gun at me." And I had enough respect for him to realize that it was serious and he meant it.
Right.
And so
that was even with it broken open.
Now, yes, that was even with the broken open in the chamber. Right. But the point is that if you can't see it being unsafe, swinging unchambered gun in front of somebody, think about just how rude that is.
Right. That's right.
It's even if you know that this isn't loaded, it's rude to point it at anybody.
And it really does make me just almost queasy. I mean, it just gives me a very uncomfortable feeling, even like sitting on a table like that, nobody even handling it. If there were somebody on that end of the table, I wouldn't be able to not be bothered by it. I mean, it would really bother me, Yeah. And that's just having these rules ingrained in such a way. And if they are ingrained like that, the likelihood of you harming someone inadvertently with a firearm is extremely unlikely. Number 3, keep your finger off the trigger until your sights are on the target. Right?
Yeah.
The gun can't go off unless you pull the trigger.
Right. Yes.
And so if you don't put your finger on the trigger, it's not going to go off. You're not going to inadvertently have a... I know... what's the term? It's negligent discharge?
Yes. Yes, that would be...
And is there I think it's accidental discharge.
Yeah, there's
right?
accidental discharge.
Right. And I heard a person say one time, and that's why I couldn't think of the term, because he said there's no such thing as an accidental discharge. There's a negligent discharge because you put your finger on the trigger when you weren't supposed to.
Well, that's true unless you're working on guns.
Right.
So I remember one time, this was when I was in gunsmithing school, in third year, you could choose your own projects to work on. Mm-hmm. And one of the most useless things I made was a magazine extension for a Browning 10-gauge pump shotgun. Anyway, it was a time-consuming project that in the end didn't mean a whole lot to me. But I was cutting an inside thread on something, and so I'm just watching a dial of numbers spin slowly as the mill's turning, and then I hear a gunshot in the classroom, and I disengaged my crossfeed automatically out of reaction and cut a nice ring inside the threads I was cutting. But my mind pictured the who I considered the least intelligent members of the classroom, expecting to turn around and find one of them holding the firearm that discharged and hope that it wasn't pointed at somebody else at the time.
Right.
And so I wasn't the only one that turned my machine off. All of a sudden, it was dead silent. Nobody said a word. And then you look around, and here's the instructor holding the gun, looking up at the ceiling as small particles of dust and concrete fall down, because it's encased in a concrete building. So after a long pause of nobody saying anything, the instructor said, "Well, I guess I'll go fill out the paperwork on this one." Everybody awake. So and the thing was that somebody gave him a gun that had a round stuck in the chamber. So when he went to disassemble it, the hammer fell. So, but he followed the rules, and it was pointed in a safe direction.
Right.
So
like and that's one of the things I've heard, and I'm not sure, this is an official thing or not, but, and I forget who it was that I heard say it, but said, you might get away with breaking one of the rules, but if you break two, somebody's getting hurt, right?
Well, that's what Alec Baldwin did. He broke two. He handed a gun. He didn't check it himself. Never mind. And he pointed in an unsafe direction, apparently directly at somebody.
Two rules.
Yes.
Right. That's two rules.
Yep.
So, if he failed to check it, that's breaking one rule, right? He didn't handle it like, rule one, where you always assume it's loaded, right? Because if he followed that rule, he would have checked it himself. Okay, but if he had still followed the second rule of never pointing the muzzle in an unsafe direction, it would have went off and it would have fired a live round, but it wouldn't have hit anybody. Right?
That's right.
He broke two rules, and somebody died because of it.
Yeah.
So keep your finger off the trigger until your sights are on the target. Number 4, be aware of your target and what is behind it. This is one of the things I think people don't really think about, that if you're in a self-defense situation, somebody charges you, and you are, you have to defend yourself with lethal force, right? The round, you have a pass-through,
right,
and you hit somebody on the other side of that person.
Right.
That, now, in my opinion, it should be the person committing the felony that is held liable for that. But our legal system will hold the person that pulled the trigger liable for it.
Very well. That depends on the state and the interpretation of law. So, some places would charge the felony with the, but other places would not. Which, when you think about it, that's not fair, because it should be equal under the law.
If somebody forces me to defend myself with a firearm, then whoever gets hurt inadvertently in connection to that should be that person's fault.
Yes.
Right? That's what I said. And I don't know if, this audience is ready for the, Israel-Hamas discussion or not. but in my opinion, any innocent people harmed in Gaza is the fault of Hamas, not Israel.
Yes. I agree with that.
Israel is not to blame for a single innocent person getting hurt in Gaza. 100% of the blame is Hamas, because Israel wouldn't be doing anything in Gaza if Hamas hadn't attacked Israel and taken Israeli hostages back to Gaza.
A perfect example of why people need to be able to defend themselves.
That's right.
It's kind of funny for me to think about that Israel had to open up their gun laws so more people could carry after the fact. I think that
I
people
mean, that was something that kind of surprised me about Israel because
you would think that they would be prepared to defend themselves
right,
at all.
because don't they have mandatory service?
Yes.
Kind of like Switzerland, where
Right.
you serve at 18 to 20, and then when you get out of the military, you keep your rifle.
That's right.
So I would have thought that they all had rifles.
Well, funny, and the thing is about Switzerland, everybody has a rifle. They're fully automatic. They're machine guns.
Oh, I didn't know that.
They're military.
Yeah.
It's the military arm. So
And
most of them are a selective fire.
And when they leave the military, they
keep it
keep
with
their
it.
rifle.
That's right. That's right. No, so it's not the firearm because that causes the danger. Otherwise, it would be the best armed army would wipe themselves out, and that's not the case.
Wow. So what are you carrying today?
Oh well, I've got my little Derringer here. It's the most versatile gun for if you can't do it with the Desert Eagle 50, you just can't. See, if you have this one and the Barrett 50, you've got it all covered. So that's so. No, actually, this is actually my wife's gun. I just pointed it at my head, which is one of the things about pistols is they change direction much faster than rifles do. But this is actually my wife's. I actually have two of these. I bought the early ones when they came out in 41 Magnum. I was not pleased with their performance. I got a good buy on this one, purchased it. This is the new Mark 19, and shot it just to see how it was, and I found it to be incredibly accurate. So
what is that? I think you did some big game hunting. With
yeah,
that,
I have. Yeah, it's a 50 AE. I've used it on deer and other animals. My friends all used to make fun of me out west because when we'd go over what range this animal was that we shot and that animal that we shot, and every time they asked me about deer, 35 yards. And they thought that was funny till they came out here and hunted and saw, oh, everything's really thick here. That's why every shot is at 35 yards. But honestly, for deer hunting, I find this to be a very usable tool for such in short range. It starts off with a large 50 caliber diameter bullet, and then when it hits, it gets bigger. So and because it's not traveling 2,000 feet per second, it doesn't destroy a lot of meat. So,
but probably not the best daily carry.
No, probably not the best daily carry, and not really the most versatile gun to own. If you had to pick one, if you were going to pick one gun to do everything with, it's hard to beat a pump shotgun. This is a 870 Remington. This is a newer one with the plastic trigger guard. There are some people that say they're fine. Some people say they're plastic. Some people say that they're better than the metal ones. I don't know. But they're simple to operate. They're reliable, and they're very functional, powerful. If you had to only have one gun, this would be a strong consideration
for home defense.
For home defense, or for just versatility. I mean, you can hunt birds, you can hunt small game, you can hunt big game with this. It'll do everything. Its drawbacks are it doesn't hold a lot of rounds, but in a hunting gun, you're limited to that anyway most of the time.
5?
It holds 5, 4 plus 1 usually is what most shotguns have. I don't know if this is. I haven't. I should know. My guess is it's probably 4 plus 1. So it doesn't hold a whole lot. But if you're in Georgia, if you're hunting birds, you're limited to 3 shots anyway. It actually has a plug in there that limits how many shells it'll hold. Obviously 2, 1 in the chamber and 2 in the tube if it's in place. I haven't checked this gun to see if it has a plug or not. Right. But so, on a pump, there's always you gotta load it. You're always gonna find a bolt release somewhere around the trigger group. And that 870s is up in the front here. And after you unload it, after you shoot, it'll cycle. But to load it, you'll have to cycle it one time manually. After that, it'll load itself.
So, what is it about this shotgun that makes it an ideal home defense gun?
When you pull the trigger on a shotgun, you're putting, most of the time, multiple pellets downrange. And each one of those pellets has a particular mass that determines how deep it'll penetrate in a bad guy, like you were talking about having somebody injured by a pass-through.
Right.
Which, when you think about the number of people living now in apartments, that's a bigger issue.
Right.
Because your gun, if you have to defend yourself in your home, is going to go through a wall,
right,
or a floor, or a ceiling where somebody else might reside, and you don't know where they are.
Right.
But with a shotgun, you can use ammunition that won't over-penetrate a perpetrator if you have to defend yourself. So you have great versatility in the ammunition that you can load. You can load small pellets for bird shot, for small game, and like you said, birds. Or you can use buckshot, which is good for hunting or self-defense, or slug, which is also good for hunting and self-defense as well. A slug is a single large projectile,
right.
And it starts off at roughly 3/4 of an inch in diameter. So it's a big chunk of lead that, when it hits, is still soft and expands. Which
So
makes
it wouldn't pass through.
It can, because you got a big chunk of lead.
Right.
That, weight makes a big difference on penetration. What stops over penetration is to use, generally speaking, a lighter bullet.
Right. Okay.
So, speaking of lighter bullets, this is a 22. Norm and I actually put this one together on video. You can probably look around, maybe find it. But this is a 10/22. It's been customized. Everything on it is custom, but the purpose of it doesn't change. It's still a very good go-to tool. So you can hold multiple rounds. It's been around for a long time. Everybody wants to talk like semi-automatic is a new and big deal. It's not. It's been around since the 1900s.
Right.
The 1911 pistol, which is still very prevalent today, is named 1911 because it was made in 1911. Right. So the design there is still over 100 years old and still adequate. The thing is about this is it's quiet, it's effective on small game, and you can hold a lot of bullets in a small space. So everybody wants to make a big deal of how much ammo somebody has when they're arrested. You buy ammo for 22s generally in 500-pound bricks, is what they're called.
Right.
And so you buy 2 bricks, and that's 1,000 rounds. Sounds like a lot, but in a 22 you can shoot a brick in a day.
Yeah,
you think that's a whole lot, but it can happen very quickly. You got a couple of people shooting. It doesn't take long to run through some ammo.
Yeah. And 22s are probably the most affordable round to use.
Yes. Yeah. That's a shoot. They can range in price anywhere from less than a nickel a piece to more than that for competition quality.
I think that's a 25 round magazine. For that right there.
Yes, that is. Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a 25 round magazine for that 10/22 rifle.
I'll put it in for visual purposes, so you can see. Once again, not loaded. So and there's 25 rounds. This is a factory Remington magazine. So it
and you're good to go.
You're good to go.
Rounds.
That's right. And they make doubles where it has another one on the other side where you just flip it over upside down for another 25. That's one of the advantages of the undergun, is that it can hold quite a number of rounds, and if you happen to be defending your home against something, you can use 22 bullets as cover fire to keep somebody's head down while saving your.
That would be the same magazine you would use for the undergun.
Yes. Yeah.
So in summary, the petrodollar has expired, and so your dollars may very soon be worth a small fraction of what it's worth today. So
And
be prepared.
well, the thing is, understand this. This is intentional.
Right.
That's the thing, is they've intentionally printed the money to lower the value of the dollar to discourage countries from continuing to use the dollar as the national currency. And that's very destructive, and it's been engineered. You need so please look at who's intentionally doing that and why.
That's right. So be prepared for what's coming, because it's coming. It's not a if, it's a when.
An if. And how bad is it going to be? Because the thing is, although all of this is being engineered, they don't have control of all of it.
That's right.
They can't, because we exist.
You know, when the billionaires start building these mega bunkers for themselves, people probably ought to start paying attention to what's going on.
Yeah.
Because they know what's going on.
Yep, that's right. And I think it would be really good after they're all in their bunkers and we have gone through the turmoil that we have, and we've recovered. What we do is we back a cement truck up to the exit of the bunker and cover it up, and let them have their little home to themselves.
They wanted the resources for themselves, so we'll just cement them in and
let them have it. That's exactly right.
Well, thanks, Chris. I appreciate you helping me understand that a little better, and helping me understand the need to be prepared, because it's going to be, you know, there are some books out there that you know, go through and kind of, I think, give some pretty good insight into what a collapse would be like for the average person, and it's pretty horrifying. And so
by our own government studies, you know, 90%. And the thing is, it doesn't take an EMP. Now we're liable, or you can have a hacker take down, or a country take down our systems, because they're all on computer now. And the other side has been working really hard to figure out how to hurt us. I mean, that's the goal. And unfortunately, we have people inside this country who have the same goal.
You know, I preach about the righteous remnant in the Bible, you know, pretty regularly. And so, you know, when it comes to this, and, you know, 90%, you're talking about only 10% making it, I want to be in that remnant, you know. I want to be that righteous remnant that makes it. So, you know, whatever you can do to get ready, you know, be prepared.
If, you know, we're not, well, of course, we'll do more preparedness videos in the future. But if all of a sudden you pick up your cell phone and it doesn't work and the power's out, fill up the bathtubs that you have and all your sinks with water, just in case.
Just in case.
Because if it is across the board, you're only going to have water for a certain period of time, and that's going to be the most crucial, critical first thing that rolls around.
Now, out here in the country where we live, we've got wells, so that's one benefit. But you know,
but even then, we still would have to bring the water up by hand if. And you have to have, and the, you know, most are drilled, so you have to have techniques to get the water out of a deep, narrow, small hole.
Yeah.
So we'll cover that in the future. It can be done. So.
But in the cities with the municipal water supplies, definitely first thing you want to do, if the water's still running, fill up everything you can with some water, for sure.
Yep, that's right. But like I said, we'll cover more prepping later. So we're just discussing the reasons why
And
now.
now that we've given you, all of this good news, have a nice day.
Take care.